Hello, I'm Emmanuel Mercado, and I'll be presenting an analysis of BC's GHG emissions from 1990 to 2001. We'll start off with the agenda. I'll start off with the problem statement, collecting and uploading the data, cleaning and preparing it, the EDA, data analysis, and then we'll finish off with key takeaways and recommendations. Problem statement. For those of you that don't know, since the Industrial Revolution, millions of tons of carbon dioxide equivalent, or MtCO2e, have been released into the atmosphere, creating a heat trapping effect similar to a blanket around the Earth. In response to the urgent need to address global warming, BC, BC's Clean Up BC plan targets a 16% reduction in greenhouse gases below 2007 levels, progressing towards a deeper cut of 40%, 60%, and 80% in the decades to come. The project analyzes GHG emissions by sector over the past 32 years, identifying key areas where target efforts could most effectively reduce emissions. The analysis draws on open source data to highlight opportunities for impactful climate action. First, I sourced the data from British Columbia Data Catalog. The resource was called BC Greenhouse Gas Emission Estimates for 1990 to 2021. There were 1,295 data points from 1990 to 2021, and that was sorted by sector, subsector levels 1 and 2. I then proceeded to import it to Google Colab. From there, I was handling the missing values, and I wanted a quick preview of what that would look like. From there, wanted a quick preview of what that looked like. So it would allow me to see what the layout was. So with display header and info, or head and info, I was able to fill up the first 5 rows, and it showed me what the column layout was like. And I was checking for non and null counts, non-null count columns, and D-type. And then I proceeded to check for any missing values, and then fill them in with the median. And after that, you can see the values turn to 0. And I was using Google Colab, NumPy, and Pandas. Proceeding to clean the data, I searched through all the columns and sectors to identify any inconsistencies using unique property values. And then I calculated the sum of the emissions for each year, created a line plot for the total emissions over time with appropriate labels and title, and then displaying the line plot. Moving on, this is what it looks like when you see the chart that I just created. So the exploratory data analysis. And this is a closer look of the total emissions of all industries over the last 10 years, from 2011 to 2021. The top 10 subcategories over 1990 to 2021. So moving further into their subsectors, like road transport, manufacturing, oil and gas, and so on. And then I moved on to the top 10 subcategories over the last 10 years, from 2021 to 2020. 2011 to 2021, which looks very similar. So road transport way ahead of the rest when it comes to usage or emissions. And then looking at it in a different perspective, showing the total emissions by sector and seeing that energy takes up 77% of the pie. How have overall GHG emissions in BC changed from 1990 to 2021? Emissions in British Columbia have experienced fluctuations over the past 3 decades. While there have been periods of decrease overall, the trend shows a significant increase from 1992 to the early 2000s, with a median total emission of 63.40 from 2000 to 2021. Emissions have seen a drop since the early 2000s, but are coming back up to peak levels and remain steady at around 61 mtCO2e. With that, I was able to calculate the medians here, total median greenhouse gas emissions, and then by decade, in the 90s, 2000s, 2010s, 2020s, that you can see here on the right-hand side. 2020 is not complete with only 2 years data. So moving forward, what sectors and subsectors are the largest contributors to these emissions? In 2021, the energy sector was an average of 50.17 mtCO2e, which remains the dominant source of greenhouse emissions, followed by the industrial process and product use at 8. So a significant difference there. Shows that energy is 77% of the pie, like we discussed earlier. Moving forward, breaking down the largest sectors. So when we move from those subsector level 1 till subsector level 2, we see that road transport is the main emission driver, followed by manufacturing and off-road transport. So this is just through the subsector level 2. Key findings and recommendations. There appears to be an upward trend in global house gas emissions from 1990 to 2005, and then a drop in the 2010s, and then starting to pick up to another increase in recent years to peak levels, which are around 70. The plot shows 3 peaks in total emissions hitting above 70 mtCO2e around the years 2001, 2004, and then 2018. So based on the visualizations, the energy sector, particularly sectors like road, transport, and oil and gas extraction, appear to be the most significant contributors to GHG emissions. And then total emissions drop by 2.79% from 2007 to 2021, but still not meeting our target of under that level of 2007. So the recommendations, the data confirms that while British Columbia has made progress in most areas, significant challenges remain in achieving its emission reduction goals. The insights gained from this analysis, particularly identifying key contributors like transportation and oil and gas production, are worthy at looking into further to provide a clear roadmap in developing and implementing effective climate policies. The next step would involve using these findings to inform strategic planning and resource allocation to reduce emissions in the most impactful areas. So diving a little deeper into what areas of transportation could be improved, such as using electric vehicles, lower emission cars, and improving the logistics of the routes and things like that. All right, and that's the end of my presentation. Thanks so much for your time. You can see the libraries I used on the right, as well as the tools. Have a nice day.